Hi everyone, it's Alex the Christian Overthinker here. I have been sick for the past 2 or 3 weeks, so I'm feeling thoroughly sorry for myself, and instead of my planned video on Hildegard of Bingen, you're going to be getting a rundown of some of the books that I've read over the past few weeks that have cheered me up or otherwise. I hope you enjoy.
I've got technically two, books from first-time authors, an almost unclassifiable book endorsed by a former Archbishop of Canterbury, a book that's actually the transcription of a lecture that's definitely not endorsed by the current Archbishop of Canterbury, and a book that's giving me the creeping willies. Let's start with the lecture. Shaking Hands with Death is a transcript of Terry Pratchett's 2010 Dimbleby lecture for the BBC. So Terry was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and died 2 years ago last week, which is when I bought this little book. And I am not a good enough writer yet to talk about how Terry Pratchett's books shaped my childhood. They continue to shape my understanding of what it means to be a human, with choice and responsibility in the face of this world that's so beautiful, so awful, and so ridiculous. I really can't separate the influence of his books from my education. And it is not fair that he died so young. But while he was alive, and while he was navigating what it meant to have a degenerative disease, he was pissed off as anything, but he was also an advocate for what he calls a good death. This lecture is his story, and his case for assisted dying. I'd be fascinated to hear what you'd think on this issue, because it's not really one I have strong feelings about. I mean, I could probably give you an opinion, but I'd be open to persuasion either way. Call me a hippie or indeed a Christian, but I think it probably depends on what love looks like in any given situation. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section, actually. So, from one prolific author to a brand new one, Sarah Day is the science communicator at the Geological Society of London, and Mussolini's Island is her first novel, published last month. It's set in 1930s Italy, and it's based on an incident I would not have heard about if Sarah hadn't been writing about it. So, in Mussolini's dictatorship, heterosexuality in the family were standards that you had to live up to. So, single men were taxed and tracked, and eventually some of those with suspicious enough lifestyles were arrested and subject to confino, so internment as prisoners on a camp on this tiny little island of San Domino. The books follow the fictional Francesco and his community that are basically uprooted and imprisoned altogether, which leads to quite a weird dynamic. They're obviously humiliated and locked up with all kinds of personal conflict, but on the other hand, they've been arrested for homosexuality, so they don't really have to hide it anymore. There's a mystery, there's tension between the prisoners, there's tension between them and the island's tiny population, and it had me biting fingernails and turning pages. But the fact that this really happened made me so angry, and the humiliation, screw fascism, seriously. So since this channel is supposed to be about church, faith and life, I don't know, something about how we need to take a serious look at ourselves, because if we're not standing up against this kind of thing, I don't really know what we're doing. Injustice, not novel writing. Sarah, write more books, that one was great, and the cover is fabulous. I want to pause there because there's something I hear over and over again, and it's, is it a Christian book? Someone's told me I shouldn't read non-Christian books. I don't have time to get into this now, but as far as I'm concerned, you can consign that kind of talk to the pit of hell where it belongs. I finally got around to reading Patrick Rothfuss' The Name of the Wind, which is also a first novel, but one that's been followed up with more since, and it's so good! I'm so glad this is in my life. This really helped. No further comment. So I started reading Kraken by China Mieville, and this is creepy as all gets out. On the one hand, I want to wrap myself up in his use of words, just kind of swim around in the excellence. And on the other hand, I want my back to the wall at all times. If you're at all interested in gothic horror, I do recommend it. Actually, if you're at all interested in the theology of Gothic and horror, I recommend the work of John, the Lit Crit guy, who you can find on Twitter, who's doing a PhD on the subject. He has a podcast too, so check his stuff out. The last book, and one I haven't finished reading yet, is by Rachel Mann. She is a local vicar and the poet in residence at Manchester Cathedral, which I like to think means that she actually lives in the building haunting the bell tower, but I suspect doesn't really mean that. Her new book is Fierce Imaginings, The Great War, Ritual, Memory and God. Yes, Rowan Williams wrote the foreword. Yes, it's not easily classified. It's got bits of memoir, poetry, theology, like a meditation on who we are, an exploration of who we are as a country, as a people, and the impact that the Great War had on us all. I went to the launch at the cathedral, and there was music and readings and poetry, and I cried most of the way through. Rachel says she's fascinated by the war, and as you can see from all the poppies that I still collect when I think nobody's looking, there's something in me that can't quite go away from it either. I hate the idea, like the injustice and the waste, but it's still something that in the village I grew up in you could really get away from, the war memorials and the Remembrance Day services. I'm looking forward to seeing this book unfold. What inspires and breaks something in me about Rachel's writing is this sense that she brings all of herself to it. It's possible to not fit into neat categories and express that, and to not have to tie it all up with a nice bow and a neat message. I'm really enjoying this book. That's all the books for now. This one's next on my list.
So thanks for bearing with me, everybody. I should get to Hildegard next week. If you like this video, please like the video and please subscribe. And if you have any questions, or if there are any topics that you'd like me to cover, please let me know down in the comment section. And I hope you have a great week.